think it looks so ridiculous and impossible. And you can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly. Like, we'd have way better CGI if it was fake.
Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Kevin. I actually go by Mountain Biker Patriot on the web as like my call sign. But I sort of inserted myself into this, the flat earth, the FE, the final experiment debate online as a result of some of my own curiosity in looking at the footage that was finally added to the web from these guys about a week ago. Okay, so everybody who follows this debate between the people who consider themselves the Globers, the NASA people, and the Flat Earthers, the skeptics, have gone back and forth, and this guy, Will Duffy, claims that he is going to set up something that he called the final experiment, and he wanted to invite, put an open invitation out to notable or popular YouTubers who support the biblical Earth model, or you could call it the flat Earth model, the non-rotating motionless plane, which is what I like to call it, the motionless plane Earth model. If you can determine the Earth is motionless, which you can, and that it's a level plane, which you can, and all altitude is measured from sea level. Liquids are our primary source of determining level. So for me, whatever they did is only more important to people who want to claim they live on a globe. Because there's the circling sun in the north. In order for it to be a globe, they would be the ones required to prove that the sun stays above the horizon for 24 hours in the south. Okay? So for me, when somebody's making a claim and they go down and they take this video footage, they should act relatively normal, aside from the fact that they're doing something like an expedition to a really cool location like Antarctica. And they should be able to create a scenario where whatever they record should be easily, it should not be falsifiable. Should not be easily falsifiable. Let me put it that way. Okay. So what you see over my right shoulder is what you can do with a 360 camera. You can completely hoop the footage into where you're walking around on looks like you're walking around on a ball, right? So this was what happened for me. I've never used a 360 camera. I've seen them. I watch mountain bikers who use the GoPro, which can alter the orientation of the footage, and it shows those fisheye lens aspect, right, where everything curves. And for me, again, as somebody who's a motionless plane earther and wanting to go down and just record the sun above the horizon, I would have chosen a standard camera that does not utilize a fisheye lens, which we've pretty much all railed against, and is the primary method that's used to pretend that there's curvature along the horizon, which there isn't, right? So, and then if I was Whitsitt or Jaron, I would have not chosen a dual fisheye lens camera in order to record the 24 hours of the sun above the horizon line. They could have probably chosen another location that you really didn't even have any mountains there, although, based on the plane of Earth, the mountains come into play as the sun gets lower along the horizon. So again, the only people who are required to prove the sun is circling the sky for 24 hours in Antarctica are the people who believe in the globe. Okay, that's the final experiment for them, not the final experiment for us. Okay, so when I went out onto their footage, having limited experience with 360 camera footage, I was surprised that you can scroll up and down and left and right, and you can even zoom in on the footage. And what I found is, in zooming in, I identified some dark blue line that came up and traveled to the left and terminated. Now, one of the guys in the comment section of one of my videos said, if you bring the aspect ratio down to its lowest character, like 144, you can see the splicing of the cameras, which for me, I didn't know, okay? It makes the footage flat, and it makes it seem like you're standing inside of a glass room with a square. And I'll show some of these images, and I'll compare it to mine that I captured. I was viewing it in a much higher resolution. And what I found is that the whole suspect nature of a 360 camera is the resolution really sucks. When you get into the low quality and you try to zoom in, it's completely distorted and it must be completely, entirely reliant on the computer to smooth all the images. Okay, which again, to me, speaks to the desire to deceive, which is Will Duffy's thing, because you'd want to have a camera footage that is most manipulatable through the computer, right? And if I was combining video footage from an on-site location and some studio footage or some spliced in video footage, I would want to do it in a method where just the base level data is easily corruptible, and it's really not very good. And one of the things I found too is I spent a little time trying to see the entry and exit point of the vehicles as they come in and out of frame, when you could go out and look at various points in the actual 360 footage of the 24 hours. And what you find is really quickly, even in zooming in, you can't tell what it is that's moving on and off the screen. Okay, and again, I would do that if I, drove a car 50 yards off, and then I wanted to interdict footage of that vehicle into the supposed 24 hours. And hey, bro, trust me, I'm here. We're on site and people are driving on and off our location with snowmobiles and trucks and stuff. The original landing footage of them with their jet plane that came out and landed on the snow with 15 people. I mean, think of the expense of flying a 727 down to Antarctica. I mean, yeah, this must be quite an expensive adventure for these folks. So I'm going to go through some fallacies. I just want to start off with my own sort of monologue about this. We don't require the sun for 24 hours anywhere because we only see the sun in an apparent position in the sky, because we're seeing it through a lens. We're not seeing the sun directly. We're seeing it through the atmosphere. For those of us who are biblical flat earthers, we're seeing it through the firmament. So anybody who wants to learn more about this apparent location based on light through prisms and through lenses, there are plenty of experiments that people have done, and you can go out and you can shine a light through a prism and you will see it in an apparent location. Based on what I can tell, it's almost impossible unless you're on either side of the lens, controlling the light source and as the observer, to know the actual location of the light source. Okay, and that's the problem that they have. We don't have, because in our model, yeah, you're seeing an apparent location of the sun, whatever it happens to be, electromagnetic arc of energy in the sky versus a hydrogen ball 93 million miles away burning in the vacuum of space with no oxygen. All right, so there are plenty of things that we can get into. I've already gone on long enough with my monologue, but I wanted to just sort of set the table for my premise, is that their use of the 360 camera in and of itself is suspect enough for me to completely distrust everything else these guys show me. Okay. The constant straw man and the gaslighting that people who believe the Earth is a motionless plane also know that there's an Antarctic treaty that controls movement and travel to Antarctica. What? Where are the guns, Nathan? Where are the guns? Well, you went to an approved location through an expedition service. You didn't, try to have your own independent observation of somewhere along the shoreline of Antarctica. Nobody's refuting that you can visit there. I could book a cruise if I wanted to invest a lot of money. What we do know from this whole thing is it's extremely expensive to go to Antarctica. So those people who go are usually, funded by schools. They are there for their employment. And we're going to look at third-party, non-biased examples of people who've been there and what their accounts of their time in Antarctica. So to me, the best way to go about finding something out is to look for non-associated, completely unrelated activities of human beings that either prove or disprove your point. So before anybody thought this was a debate or anybody cared about who needs to prove the sun is above the horizon for 24 hours, there were people traveling to Antarctica. They were going on cruises. They were, there for environmental study, right? They were observing the penguins and the orca and the whales, and they were paddling around on kayaks. And you could just put it into YouTube and you can find people's excursions to Antarctica for many years. So let's get into a little bit again. I want to just point out to you the magic of that camera, the 360 camera. You have a guy whose video I went out on to just learn more about the 360 camera. I don't own one. I own a high zoom camera. Maybe I'll buy a 360 camera. They're not that inexpensive, maybe $500, and you can spend as much as you want. But there's plenty of footage of people utilizing them, and what I did find out is the lower you go with the resolution, the sketchier the images become. Right now we're looking at it in 720. I can bring the image down to 144, and it starts to really become pretty unrecognizable. And this is what I would ask you to do, right? I'm going to show you my process of trying to explore the veracity of the claims that they're making and the actual video footage that they're providing, and what can you glean from it. And again, the quality of the image is really suspect, and it would lend itself to being able to splice in additional time frame. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. You go out and you look up their videos. You go to the final experiment. You go into any one of their videos, right? And you enlarge the screen, and you can see, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, right? You can go up, you can pull the screen up, you can pull it down. And what you find is, you may locate some artifacts on here. So right here, which is not in alignment with where I saw it. So this is at 2 hours, 48 minutes, and 19 seconds. There is a splice line from the camera. And if you pull them up, the splice lines may or may not become apparent for you. Okay. Now, what was unusual about my video is when I pulled the video in, it was a really dark blue line, and I think I was in 1080 when I did it. And my video is out there, you can observe that. And I may do a second video where I just, try to give you better images of what I was looking at. But essentially what I did is I found something searching around like I'm doing now, and then I used my Samsung phone, and I simply recorded what was occurring on my screen. Okay? That's all I did. So I didn't manipulate any of the footage. All I did was record it, and then in order to get it from the monstrous file that it is on my phone, I downloaded it using the Android app, and then I only have one movie creation thing to put it on YouTube because I wanted to share what I found with other people. Is I compressed it through iMovie. I didn't make any alterations. I didn't highlight anything. I didn't change any things. I didn't use any filters. All I did was record what I had on my phone, and then I put it up onto the web. Okay. Now, the next thing that happened is I said, all right, who can I tell? Because I think this is kind of weird. I'm seeing something as an anomaly. We heard about the Amazon studio and the ability to record this 360 footage. And maybe this is something they would have done to have their comings and goings, and just to sort of establish the hi, I'm in Antarctica kind of, and this is the activity we're doing to record the 24 hours of sun above the horizon, yada, yada. Okay. And so you can do this, but look, when you go into this really low res, and you can see the seaming of the camera, and you can spend some time looking around. Okay. But so here's the seam. It's right here. I'm going to bring this up into 1080, and let's see if we can see it when I scroll in. Okay. So it's right here. I can just make out this seam, but in my video it was dark blue. And when folks have done the AI and said, hey, where would, what would an artifact look like from videoing an LED wall, it said it would be a dark line. Now, whatever, if they left it alone and we see these artifacts and you go, yeah, it's just because we use these shitty 360 camera footage to try and prove we're in Antarctica for, the couple days to see the 24-hour sun. No worries. You could have done that, and they could have left it alone. They could have been like, yeah, that's just an artifact. So I went out and I tried to find other people because I didn't know enough about it. So let me find some other people that I can share this with and see what they think. And I found Vika Draziv, and I sent it to Vika, and I sent my video from my phone to Vika because he was doing these TFE, questioning these guys and their motives and their proof and their experiment, right? And he was like, I don't see it. He zoomed in and zoomed back out, and he couldn't see it. And then what he did is he filtered it, and he found that they smudged it. So you can go out through YouTube Studio, and in real time, you can smudge the footage. So what that says is a couple things for us. Is A, they're monitoring the chat boards to try to, handle any errors, kind of like NASA does with their moon landing. You're like, oh, you can't use rubber tires on the moon. Oh, we better put out some new pictures where we show that we're using steel tires, right? So the truth never needs alteration. It is what it is. And you just go, I don't say, trust me, bro. Don't trust me. Do your own research. I went down to Antarctica. This is the footage I took. But you would need to have the corroboration from like everybody who ever travels down there during that time period. Okay. So do your own manipulation of this. Again, the problem for me with this at all, they're weird artifacts on the sun. There's light anomalies. And you scroll around in 360, but I don't know what time it is. And the ease at which they could insert the video they require into this perfect scenario, right? Oh my God, we got down there and it was divine intervention. We had the clearest sky ever imaginable. You thought you were in Arizona, right? And here you have the mountain ranges, and over here in some of the footage you have like a dancing Nancy. And I'll show, I'll do another video with anything I've captured in their footage that's really weird. I will try to show you the entrance and exit of some of the vehicles. And what you'll find is you can't, there's no way to say that what you're seeing is a vehicle and not just a smudge entered into the footage to make it look like they were actually at that location and not in the studio, right? You want to make it easy to prove that you're not utilizing movie magic in order to do your 24-hour experiment, and again, we're not required to prove it. They are. So this is what what you can do is go out and observe this stuff. And then what I would ask you to do is there's 8K footage out here of people who did their trips to Antarctica and just nature explorers and people and scientific experiments or kids who were out there for school or whatever. And you can find 8K footage everywhere. Why these guys didn't use 8K footage? They had GoPros on them. GoPro has its problems, but it's not as bad as a 360 camera. All cameras are subject to issues with their batteries. They need to have sealed compartments because it gets humidity and change of temperature and all that kind of stuff that can happen for a camera. But, I looked up, one guy had questioned me and he was like, well, these are artifacts. I'm like, okay, well, there are artifacts in this shitty footage. But that doesn't mean that what I was seeing wasn't actually the representation of the wall that they were using when they had a limit to how far they would travel away from the camp. And that's a problem for me. If I just wandered off in a direction to the red flag that's shown of how far I'm allowed to travel to, I would have actually had some, hey, I'm going to hike around a little bit footage from Antarctica because this is cool all by itself. I mean, who's got 40 grand to drop on a trip to Antarctica? You need to be really affluent in order to do that, to take your, adventure expedition to any place like this. So I would have also had some footage of me just wandering around. The camera's doing its job. These guys didn't need to do shit with the camera. They just set it up on a tripod and let that 360 do its job. maybe they have it, it's behind their paywalls or something, but any tourist, and I'll show you some of the tourist footage, and this is probably going to be a longer thing. I'll end up having to put a couple videos together, but you can see tourist footage from their trip to Antarctica. No big deal. Okay, so again, this is them showing a perfect horizon for you to see the potential for the sun in a 24-hour loop. And what did they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras. They only had one standard camera, and this one they claim was only for them to do the footage of sunspots or something like that. So there you go. There's that. All right. So again, there are other people out here, and there's a guy. So let's just go back and let's just start the premise right from Jump Street. Cape Horn, which is Punta Arenas, which is where these guys traveled from, is at the tip of South America in Chile. There is a well-established date and time for this, right? And you could just go to all the way down and you can see the hours of daylight and nighttime in Punta Arenas, which is not far from where they traveled to in Antarctica. And you can look and see how the sun, lights that area of the world. And then, so let's go right into their time frame. We're going to go into their summer, and we're going to say right around the solstice, which is December 21st. Their sunrise is 2:38:53 a.m. and their sunset is 8:16 p.m. 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 12 to 1. So 4 or 5 hours of nighttime. Okay, so if you're going down to prove the 24-hour sun, you really only have to prove that those hours between like 8 and 2:30. You could have been down there and just cover a 6-hour period and go, here's where, dead south is, dead north. Here's my orientation point. This is where the sun needs to maintain its orientation in the sky in order for this to be a 24-hour day-night. The entire 24-hour loop is really not that important because I don't think anybody's refuting that at 10 a.m. the sun is in the sky. Right? I don't think anybody's refuting that. I think what we're refuting is that it stays above the horizon because that's their requirement. That's not our requirement. Okay? They need to be sure that you see the sun. And there are other videos where people show the path of daylight. And again, some of this is technical. They're doing this for not technical people. They're trying to prove a point in a very propagandized way, not in a scientific way, not in like, hey, let's acquaint you with the sun's path over the earth and how it's lighting different areas of the earth at various times of day, because it disproves their model. Okay, that's the problem. It doesn't prove their model, it disproves their model. For me, when you're lighting a ball from a light source in this direction, everything beyond that is going to be dark because the light doesn't bend around the corner. Okay, now with an atmosphere, you do get lighting. They do say that the sun could be, you could have a light sky or a lit sky, but the sun is not above the horizon. Okay, and that's their problem. But again, we don't really need to prove 24 hours of sun. We need to prove the sun during the nighttime. And they didn't do their sundial on the ground. They didn't have a watch, so you can't tell. There's no timestamps. You can't tell shit about that footage unless you know that this is where that mountain range is that's there, and this is what time it should be when the sun is above that mountain range. And I don't think they did a very good job of that. There's no talking in any of the footage, so anybody who would review it doesn't have any additional information to do any checking of whatever it is that they're claiming. And maybe they have, and I just haven't seen enough of their footage, and I won't go back and look at it. Okay, so again, I might be wrong, but I'm not lying. Okay, and there's a difference between going through information saying, this is what I think I see at the time, and being willing to change your mind, which they're not. Okay, again, so let's go to the next point I have for everybody. So there's a video out here where the gentleman goes through the path of daylight. It's on a guy named Flat Earth Life's page, and it's pretty cool. Where is it? Let's see if I can bring it up to full screen here. So here he goes through a full breakdown of when the sun is seen on the earth and for how long. So I would recommend that you go through this. I'll see if I can link to it and you can take it, for yourself, because for me, if there's 24-hour sun in Antarctica and I live in New Jersey and the sun is here, I should experience darkness for the same 24 hours because, right, I'm past that horizon line of the earth relative to them and the direction of the daylight for them. So if the sun is orbiting around this, you're getting this short path of the sun as you're around Antarctica. How's the sun at making its way into the northern latitudes? Kind of, that's where this guy goes into greater detail, and he's got examples of it, and that's a real scientific view other than my, hey, let's look at light cast onto a ball and see how it impacts the ability of there to actually be daylight and the sun in the sky, because I'm not just getting daylight, I'm actually seeing a sun in the sky. I need to clip and add. All right, so we're going to do an excerpt from the Tomb of Illuminations channel. Guys does an awesome job showing the path of daylight over the earth, and it pretty much debunks all of the rest of the nonsense from the Freemasons expedition to Antarctica. Okay, so we're going to give this a play. I had recorded previously, but there was all kinds of background noise because there are people who live here, and let's go for it.
Okay, nature's new it all. Now, this is going to blow your mind. So you go check out the sunset hours. It's out on pretty much on the one arc of longitude. You get look what you got here. There's the daylight field as it moves around the Earth. This is a joke model, guy. This just proves it doesn't work on a globe, because look, there's the sun. The sun's got to be here, doesn't it? But then they have to have the sun down here for 24 hours, down there. Okay, we'll come all the way up here. Sun sets at 4:35. Where's the sun up here? Look, there's two cycles. There has to be a sun here, and there has to be a sun there. And because it's the magnetic field, it's thanks to the magnetic field, you get this shape. Okay, so imagine this daylight. So I've finger down there, so you can say the sun is here as the Earth moves. There it is. Well, where's the sun on the northern hemisphere? You can't see the northern hemisphere, can you? I can't even see it from here. Look. Well, come up here. Look, the sun has to be here. There's the sunset hours. 6 o'clock, so it's further away. 6:40, coming in a bit closer. 4:35, right around here. Sunset, 1:51, right up there. Up top of Canada there somewhere. Down here you've got 5:55, get further away, 8:55, further away still is, what's only now, hour and 15 or whatever, here. It swings around the Antarctic. Does that, if I leave my finger there, forefinger there, the sun's always there, right? At this time of the year, down and out. The ecliptic plane is down and out at this time of the year, which means the field has come away from the north, it's out, down and out. The ecliptic plane up here is flexed down and out, like a jellyfish. Down, up, the magnetic field flexes down and out. Up, level, equinox you could say, then up and in. Look at this, you cannot debunk this stuff, it's fact. It's how the world works. The flat earth system. Okay? And these They represent the curving magnetic fields. Look, these curving fields. The sun comes from here in the southern hemisphere and around over our horizon, out of our horizon, right round, does a loop and comes back. It's a cardioid. Because this cycle here is mirrored to what's coming out of the centre north actually, but it's, you can say it's here. There's the curving magnetic field. Yeah, there's the northern hemisphere curving out. Curves out like that. That curves in like that. There's a bridging here at a certain time of the year where everything lines up, namely the Milky Way. That's what all religion's all about. See, field there, southeast, the sun comes from the south. Didn't I tell all these flat earthers before they went to Antarctica, the sun comes from the southeast? And we can tell this more in the summer season because the sun, we can see more of the sun coming from the south as opposed to the winter where it just comes via the east. Or even slightly northeast maybe. They get the same thing up here. They get it coming more from the northeast in their summer. No brainer. Okay, so you try and tell me, hey, how you get a 24-hour sun down here? The sun has to be down here, doesn't it? Down here? Not up here? Or not up here? It's just a nail in the coffin. Another nail. It's their final nail. They're screwed. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Thank you.
It's a great video, right? This guy's channel is called The Tomb of Illumination. And this is the first time I've actually found his channel. I had seen this clip and wanted to include it in my video because it really just tells the story we need to know. There's a science behind the path of the sun, and their story's dumb. And the entire idea that this is an experiment is dumb. They're making a movie. There might as well be, if they could afford Sandra Bullock to go down there, they would have had her running as part of the marathon, and they would have been like, oh my God, they would have created some other storyline with a romance or something. Maybe they just have a bromance going on. I don't know. But the latest way that guys are out there defending the Freemasons, and there are probably other members of the Brotherhood, Marty Leeds and Dave Weiss, and I started watching their video and like, well, Witzel was really telling the truth, and maybe they really just have that sun simulator going around. I mean, maybe they would use the sun simulator down there. Why wouldn't they? If they have it, that would be the place to use it if you wanted to get more hours of daylight down there, or maybe it also provides some level of heat. Who the hell knows? But that's not what's really going on. And the purpose of my video from this point on, like once you've seen this video and it's not the Earth turning and the sun is stationary, and that's why you're getting the path of the sun, because it's stupid. And they didn't prove that it was the Earth that was rotating. That's what, that was the reason why the sun was changing its position in the sky. And they didn't do that in their video anyway. And this shows that it's not possible on their ball to have the whole ball lit and above the horizon, above the equator line. So it's just silly. The equator from the point at which the light hits the ball, right? So he did already way better job than I did, and I'm not going to go into, but you should subscribe to his channel, and you should be watching him more than me if you want to know the science. But this is for entertainment purposes, right? We're debunking their entertainment. It's not an experiment. It's not really an expedition as far as we know. And if you paid $35,000 a man to go down there, would you really let him kick you out early? But it doesn't snow here, but we have to leave early because there's a storm coming. The constant contradiction is just, now it's hilarious. You should be laughing at this. It's just stupid. I have some people in the comments, who are trying to keep me on the point of, well, they had to splice all this footage together. I'm like, yeah, that's what I would do if I wanted to splice in 4 more hours of the sun above the horizon. I would use the right platform to do it, which is the 360 camera. It's a terrible platform to view, the horizon. But again, if you wanted to make it hard to see if it was, the Earth was moving or the sun that was moving, if you're a novice and you're just watching it just to go, to confirm your bias, that's all that's for. It's a confirmation bias tool. It's not experiment. It's not a study in reality. It's a study in their science fiction reality that they're continuing to tell everybody. And they're promoting with this other false experiment, false expedition. All that could be done in a studio. In this video, I have a clip of King Kong and Godzilla fighting in the ocean on an aircraft carrier. I love the guys who are like, they could never fake this. I mean, a few guys milling around next to a blue house. All they needed to do was put the camera up on a tripod high enough to get above head level. They could have done it during the marathon. It would have been a lot of fun, and you would have still seen the sun tracking, and it would have been easy to follow because the sun is up there in the sky. They could have gotten 100 yards farther out and still included the people running the marathon. They probably would have loved it because they were otherwise being recorded during the marathon. But what that creates is a lot more things that they would have to address when they were faking it. They try to keep it as sterile as possible so that it made the splicing in of the fakery easier. Like, you would fake it and you would splice in the sun when there's nobody milling around, because you'd want to have it just be that perfect blue field of sky to add in the blurry image that they're calling the sun. Come on now, it's so stupid. It's a fakery, and now at a certain point you get beyond the idea that it's a lie and into it being silly, and then any other comments with other people, once you already know it's dumb, there's no really point to it. And I'm just going to show other things that you can just say, snow sparkles, there's didn't, there's richness to color down in the mountains. There isn't any in their video. They've obviously adjusted the light settings and the color settings, and every possible they could adjust it to make it as sterile as possible and easy to fake. And if they were trying to make it hard to debunk, well, it's already been debunked as a concept. It doesn't really need to be debunked. They're just being debunked as people right now. And everybody else who comes out to defend them is being debunked in their own way for their defense of this silliness that's already debunked by reality in a scientific review of the light of the sun over the earth and the path of the sun over the earth. It doesn't make sense in their model with nothing between the atmosphere and space, and traveling through space, and all the movement that should be there that isn't, and all the parallax that would be apparent that isn't. We're trying to create an opportunity for us to explain how things are really closer to operating than the lies that they're being told. Knowledge is power. Control of knowledge is power. And if you were an evil piece of shit, you would want to control all the information. And not only would you want to control the information, you'd want to lie about it. I may have said it somewhere in the video, and I'll say it here again. If I wanted you not to go somewhere, I would make it seem really inhospitable, right? And I would tell you all kinds of lies about it to make it look like, something you should never visit. I'd make it really expensive to go there. I make it really hard, make you jump through hoops, make you get into agreements with the government agencies that run the access to these places. Whoever these people are, they have control of the institutions, and by use of the control of the institutions, they control access. And these guys are obviously somehow engaged with them. But let's get on to the rest of the video. Okay, so now what I have here is just a random video that I located where I just put in, 24 hours of sun in Antarctica. There's a guy named Polar Man Studio. This was 6 years ago that I was reading a comment on a video he made that was, beautiful footage of the nighttime sky in Antarctica. And there was an aurora borealis, and it was pretty cool. Okay? So he's got this footage of the sun in the sky, and this looks dark. I don't know about that. They were showing perfect Arizona sunshine. I don't know if that's the case for what they see, but down in the comment section there was a lady who wanted to go on an expedition to Antarctica, and she asked him a question about it. So this guy, Polar Man Studio, responds to her and says, Aurora Australis is seen in the South Pole. The thing is, December, January, February is considered as the summer period in Antarctica, so there will be no sunset during this period. If you go by the end of February, you may get a chance to witness the Aurora Australis, right? So the problem with the people who claim, whatever is occurring in the night sky in Antarctica and the southern latitudes is if they have constant daylight for certain periods, you don't see the stars. In New Jersey during the daytime, I don't see the stars. So you can only occasionally, you can see the sun without their constant cloud cover, or you can see the moon in the daytime also. But what I don't see is stars in the daytime. So if you wanted to see the Aurora Borealis, you'd need to go in the months when you don't have the daylight. But in a further post in here, he says, during these 3 months, the sun will set. The sunset will be for maybe 1 or 2 hours, but twilight will be there always, so it won't be dark. Okay? By the end of February, the sunset time may increase, so it is possible to get dark maybe for an hour or so. Okay? So this is somebody 6 years ago, not a part of this debate, not in question, saying they have a twilight, but twilight has redshift. The thing about their footage is, the sun gets lower and towards the horizon, you never get that redshift. And there are people who know more about the videography aspect and the tools of the trade of adjusting the light quality and that kind of stuff. There's a video from a guy whose YouTube channel called You Think, and in that video he goes through his critique as an expert cameraman and working in the studio industry. He goes into his critique of their shitty footage and their terrible non-experiment. And again, okay, so let me make an additional point here. So the best way to verify is with unrelated sources. Again, so you can go out and you can say, oh, flat earthers claim you can't go to Antarctica, and then we can go and look and see how many ways can you make a legal trip to Antarctica. Nobody's claiming you can't make legal trips to Antarctica. It's certainly, people have been doing it for a long time. There are whole cruise organizations, including the ones that these guys went down to Antarctica on. Okay, so to claim that we're all out here going, well, there's really no Antarctica and you can't go down there. Of course there is. It's the shoreline for our world, for the people who believe that that's the case, right? So the map that we sort of take and agree upon is that you have the continents, you have the North Pole. I don't know if this is the best way for you to view it. There's a blue map, but I like this one. And then Antarctica is merely the shoreline along the outside of that area. And then they're down, so we would have to be over here and say, at this section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in a different map where we actually look at that matching tip that comes from Antarctica and that part that comes down from South America, and that the area where they travel most often to visit Antarctica is along that peninsula. That includes Deception Island and all these other bases that we have down there. So let me get up a different map for us. All right, so I'm not a professional YouTuber. I don't have any specific technique for keeping myself on screen at the same time, or other people do this really well. I used to have a channel. I was more political in nature, more skeptic stuff, and it got pulled down by all of the censorship that we see out on the internet. So here we have Punta Arenas is right here. Okay, here we have this other peninsula that comes off of what we would call the shoreline of the ocean, Antarctica. Okay, so for people who don't believe it's a ball and believe that it's a plane, this is all shoreline. And this is wrapping around the continents that are in the lake. And Dave Weiss does a good job of doing all that. I don't need to redo Dave's work as much as Dave seems to be an apologist right now for these guys. For whatever reasons, I've otherwise liked the research that Dave does. Maybe he's taken it too personally, where these guys he knew and they were friends of his. But, Dave chose not to go for a reason. So over here, you know, down here is like McMurdo. And so they've traveled down here. So the path of the sun and the amount of additional daylight, they would just have to prove that the sun is available to them during these daylight hours. But most of the touring and the cruise ships are coming into this area. So to say that you're, you know, traveling to all, you know, you could just come down here from New Zealand and get a good look at Antarctica. You know, they may actually have New Zealand cruise ships too, but again, all the travel is completely controlled. And part of it too is, I should have put up, there's an image of Vlad the Impaler where he's like, we don't have to impale that many guys in order to keep people from coming. Okay, we just impale a few people, a few heads of our enemies on stakes. We'll keep people from coming. What they really need to do is show people visiting the most, or allow people to visit the most inhospitable areas, and that is like a head on a stake where everybody's like, well, how am I going to go there? You know, it's really cold and it's minus 50 degrees, and you know there's a good chance that you go down there and die, right? So most of the groups or institutions that have the ability and the funding and the resources and the manpower to create expeditions to otherwise dangerous and uninhabitable areas are really the government, you know, the militaries and universities and corporations. So the average individual of even decent means, $40,000 is a tremendous amount of money to take a 10-day vacation. Okay, for these guys, they only went down there for a couple days, so I don't think they got their money's worth, or hopefully they went kayaking while they were down there, since they were part of that expedition through Ale. Okay, so again, here's our shoreline, and what we probably can do, and I'll take some time, maybe I'll put in another video, is just show you all the companies and the various expeditions you can go on to make your own trip down to Antarctica. So let me just put myself back on here for a second. So there, you know, you can go out on YouTube and you can look up videos from even 18 years ago of people who were down in Antarctica. And here's a guy whose name's Anthony Powell, and it was a year on ice where he is down here and he was doing his videography of his experience in Antarctica, including the Aurora Borealis and all kinds of other good stuff. Right, so there are people who have spent time down there and they didn't have a dog in the fight or a dog in the hunt as far as needing to prove anything in particular about Antarctica. You know, we could probably go in further and say, you know, why was this guy down there? Was he working for a government institution? Was he working for a university? Like, I just randomly pulled him off of this you know, just string of Antarctic videos. So you can put in, you know, 8K footage of Antarctica, and you're going to see some tremendously beautiful footage. So I think, why didn't these guys, you know, use better footage to capture their trip down to Antarctica? Okay, so let's not pretend that people aren't able to go. Let's stop with that bullshit argument. That's a straw man. Nobody believes that you aren't allowed to go to Antarctica. You just simply can't do an independent expedition without permission from the government. They're going to control your operations down there. You know, it's like saying you can just fly a plane over North America without permission. Maybe a drone now, but not a plane, certainly. You need to have a flight path. They give you permission to be in the sky. The Antarctic Treaty is controlled by the countries that are party to that treaty, and it controls all of the expeditions to that area of the world, and it's not free for you to inhabit and to go if you wanted to live there like you were living in Alaska. You know, this is a controlled area. Why? I don't know. It's tundra. You know, you could go down there and die easily probably, but maybe there's other more habitable areas than the mountain ranges and stuff that we see in all this footage. Because again, these are going to be footage of areas that people are allowed to travel to. I am not a billionaire. I don't have a tremendous, 400-foot yacht that I can provision and man up to take an expedition around the South Pole, right? So around what they claim is the continent. For us, what we claim is we're circling inside of Antarctica, and they believe that they're circling around it, right? So it's whatever. We did have expeditions from the government with Admiral Byrd and others, Admiral Cook, and other mariners who had massive expeditions of an expeditionary party to go down there and investigate it. And right after Admiral Byrd, they came up with the Antarctic Treaty, and all countries in the world are party to, not all countries, all of the major players are party to this agreement, and they limit travel there. Why? It's suspect. That's all. Suspect. That creates a reason to question, like these guys, the TFE boys, the Freemason expedition down to Antarctica. For their final experiment, again, they're the only ones who have to prove the 24 hours of sun above the horizon. And again, light through a lens is only going to show you an apparent location, and there's all kinds of weird anomalies in their footage, because the quality of the cameras that they used are for other reasons than just beautiful 8K video capture. If I was able to zoom in on this 8K, I'm going to get fantastic additional view of the footage. When I zoom in on theirs, it's so grainy and useless that it would be easy to splice in the movements of these vehicles as little splotches. And I see that little splotch. I'm going to show you that, because this is the stupid stuff that, it's really irritating to me about these guys. That was 8K. My screen is probably limited to 4K, so I could probably even get more beautiful views of this, and I want you to do it. I don't have to spend here and do it myself. You can just put in 8K footage of Antarctica, and you can review it all yourself. You can go out and look up my trip to Antarctica, not me, but anybody who's gone. There's like a girl who goes to my solo trip to Antarctica, and you can see the footage they put out as a normal person traveling there. These guys did not behave normally. They acted really weird and random, and even the guys like Whitsitt and, with the vaping and the rest of it, Antarctica is supposed to be really cold. Maybe you had, the sun was up all day, so why should the temperature change? You should have no temperature change for a 24-hour sun. And why would the conditions change at all? The sun's in the sky the entire time. Unless there is a time of day where the sun's influence wanes and it gets colder there. These are the questions that I have. They're just reasonable. There's nothing, conspiracy involved here. They may be conspiring. I'm not. I'm just taking a look at it and saying, well, what should we really get out of this? What are we really going to believe these guys are doing when they're clearly engaged in a publicity stunt for Will Duffy's upcoming movie? That's all this is. I was, do this. Look up all the news articles about these guys and their trip to Antarctica, and I found one about Jaron in the Jerusalem Post. Cypher in the Jerusalem Post. There are articles all over the world setting up the release of this guy's video through the use of publicity. I was on my Facebook page, and an article came up about it from the Western Journal, right? And this is like a conservative news outlet, I guess you'd call it. And some lady had out an article in the Western Journal about, flat earthers had their entire worldview altered. Come on now. Cypher has been engaged in whatever he's up to. He doesn't make a lot of money. I think he was saying maybe he makes $40,000 a year. This trip costs more than he makes an entire year. He's in contract with Will Duffy, and he's trying to provide for his family. I don't blame these guys. The government is not to be trifled with, okay? So this is, if you really get around to disproving NASA gets $28 billion a year, but so do the companies that are engaged in these space-based activities. SpaceX, at the Amazon guys trip, Blue Horizon, whatever it was, NASA, Boeing, Lockheed, everybody that services NASA for these alleged space missions has billions of dollars invested in people continuing to believe that they're going to travel off-world on a rocket. And Mars is allegedly 240 million miles away or something like that. So even in their own paradigm, this is a stupid part of their paradigm, is they made the ability to travel anywhere off-world completely absurd, right? They made it crazy. Oh, Mars, I can still see it in the sky. It's a bright light. Yeah, that red sand sure does reflect sunlight, right? And they're not just celestial beings or celestial objects or the celestial clockwork or whatever it is that we would use, the luminaries as an explanation for what we're seeing in the sky, but they're certainly not a quadrillion miles away. That's dumb, okay? You could see, I could use my thumb to obscure my face in this video very easily. So if Polaris is hundreds of quadrillions of miles away, you don't think something could get between our view of it easily and forever, and we would never see Polaris because some quasar exploded and there's dust that obstructs the light from Polaris and hundreds of quadrillions of miles from Earth? This is all crazy talk, and you can believe them if you want. It's completely up to you. To me, they just make absurd claims that you can't prove or disprove, but they just keep saying it over and over again like a sales pitch, and then people believe it. That's really what we have going on here, is we have continuous sales pitches and not a lot of real proof. It's worse than Bigfoot, right? We can watch whatever we want. Hey, I'm going to show you something else that I think is kind of funny. Because one of the first premises, and there are guys arriving on Antarctica, and people are like, there's no way they could fake this. What? I mean, they don't need to fake it. I think they may have gone down there. You could question whether they were actually there at the time they claimed, but I would believe that they went down there. Why wouldn't they? Because every good movie has recorded footage on site and in studio. Like, that was when they got a chance to go visit the camp. I would have been out there interviewing all these people from the marathon. Bro, what do you know about the sun being in the sky the entire time? And they would say, well, we're sequestered to our tent and we're not allowed to look outside for safety. I don't know. It would be the same as being up at any other time of day, wouldn't it? Why would the clock even matter at that point if the sun is in the sky for 24 hours? Where there's a quiet time? Hey, stop partying and being loud out in the snow. This is like, those things don't make any sense from a rational person's perspective. You are controlled that much that you're not even allowed outside of your tent. So I think you have to bring in a little bucket, maybe a peanut bucket. Who knows? So you're not allowed out of your tent. So let's take a look at some other footage that we can see from Antarctica and continue to establish this theme here of, why use a 360 camera? Why gaslight everybody and create all these kinds of straw men? Because, we're doing this great experiment for humanity. Come on now. All right, so what I'm going to show you right now is just a short clip of the Arctic 24-hour sun. Again, it's relative to your distance from the actual pole, I guess. On the flat plane model, there's just a limit to the sun doesn't actually ever stop, right? So it's continuing to circle, so you're always going to have some kind of a circular motion to it in the analemma. But down in the South Pole, what do we see here as the sun comes down and it hits the horizon? So here's somebody, not refuted of the 24-hour sun. The sun gets really low, and you do see the red shift. The quality of the light changes. The sky looks really active, right? And you see the yellow sun. You see our sun in this footage. Okay? And then you have twilight during the other hours. What we see from the TFE guys is a completely different sky. One that's too perfect, that's too much like... let me just put a little pause on that. I just pulled this up. Usually you can pull things up and then not worry about the commercials. But so this is their footage. I don't know. I mean, the sun changes its shape. It's got all kinds of weird artifacts. Now, there is one place right here, and I did see this on other footage, where you get this really bad blurring and stuff. And if I was going to insert some footage, maybe I would do it there, but I don't know what time of day this is supposed to be anyway. And right now this is set up in 4K, so let's just go bring it down to the shittiest And then we're just going to run a little bit of this footage through that area. And then you have artifacts showing up, and the sun changes, and it never gets yellow. It never really hits the horizon. Chemtrails, apparently, down in Antarctica as well, because they just have to manipulate the weather everywhere. And the sun is really high. Oh, hold on. Hold on. So one of the cool things you can do with this 360 is if you just run your mouse along the bar here, you get to see things happening and you can make sense out of things a lot more quickly than otherwise. Look at the sun bounce off of this mountain range. Oh, sorry. Look at the sun bounce off the mountain range. Just stays above it. Sorry, I gotta keep my mouse along the red line here. And then see it just kind of bounce. Look at it bounce. Watch it bounce. So, oh, damn it. You're not even seeing what I'm doing. All right, let's try this again. Let's pause that. So, all I was trying to show before is that there's this viewer, which, if I capture my whole screen in there, and by pulling on the viewer, you get to see the path of the sun. So right here, and this is in that McKeegan guy's video, the sun really looks like it's dropping. Here's that splice line from my blue line video, and you can see there's a lot of distortion around the sun there, and if you keep pulling it, see the sun appears to bounce down low to the top of the mountain range, and it's clipping, right? And now it like immediately jets up and goes high into the sky through this other visual distortion. And it continues to raise up higher in the sky as I'm pulling across this video. I'm just trying to make sure I'm looking. I have a little view screen on my camera there, and we can pull it all the way across until it comes around and dips down hard again right at the other edge of the mountain range. Okay, and for me, if I can get it to come up again, spooling. And we pause, everybody. So here we see the mountain, and I'm going to pull up and kind of match up the mountain here against where they keep the camp. And this pretty much looks like the same mountain to me, and the camp should all be in here somewhere where all the tents should be, but these guys allegedly traveled to another location, and if I just sort of match up the two mountains against one another, that'll be interesting, right? And this is remember, the funny thing about this is you can manipulate the footage. Okay, so you can see the sun is really high in the horizon. I went through the website, and I never see this little hut, never pictured anywhere on their own video. So I don't know what to make about that. You know, they have this road that, oh, here comes a truck. Oh, it's perfect timing. All right, so here we have this big orange truck, and it's just kind of appear from over here. I've slowed the footage down to like a quarter speed, and you'll just see a little reference disturbance. And I want you to do this yourself. Right, it was right around 10 minutes or 11 minutes and 20 seconds or something. This truck is going to appear on the screen. Shouldn't have to wait too long. I did slow the footage down. All right, so I've zoomed way in here, and you're going to see this truck sort of appear out of the nothing. See it? All this distortion as this truck comes in. There's a big distortion around it, and then right about here. This is the problem with their footage, is it's all really grainy down at the most basic level. So actually, what do I have this on? This is 1440. This is 1440 zoomed in, right? So if we push this back, no, there it is, right? Well, we pull it in, and this is an orange artifact. Like, how can you say it wouldn't be easy for them to just splice this in along this line as they were, you know, working up the, oh, trust me, bro. Look at that thing just disappeared across my screen. Okay. So if you just take these things by yourself, break them down, and look at them and go, I don't know, would that be that hard to fake? I don't think it would be. You know, I see it just entering here as a little black dot. Lots of visual distortions around it, even at this high def. And then, you know, there it is. Okay. So, let me just stop it. Let me see if I can get this guy out of here. From this frame to here, you know, this is where it really becomes looking like a truck. It's like from here to here. Let me see if do I have the entire thing in there? I'm going to step across real quick and make sure I have exactly what I want in frame and frame. Yeah. My Nikon camera has a little screen right here. You know, so look, if it was done in the studio, this is how they splice together any footage on any movie from any set of the combination of the scenic background and the local scenery, right? So we have the hut, the camera, you know, you have your constants in the screen, and then you have the actors milling about the house here, you know. How long did they have to mill about to make all of this? I have no idea. But all around them and all around everything, because of the low quality footage taken by a 360 camera, you know, the quality is really not great. This is, again, I'm in like 1440. And if I bring that down to 144, this is what you see. You know, a box around a person. You know, boxes. A box around the truck. You know, like, there is a tremendous amount of graininess and artifacts, and the sky comes in at an angle. I don't know if that's common for a 360 camera. There's a box right here. It comes up and it goes out. You know, it looks like a box. And then the screen kind of comes from here to here. So from here to here, you have movement down here, a line across here. I mean, you know, maybe it is the optimal way to view this footage is in the lowest possible setting, because you get to see how the camera is designed. But again, if I was somebody who was trying to blend footage, you know, it seems like the perfect medium to blend footage. And it seems that the highest resolution is really like the maximum that the computers are operating on the visual field. Right? So And again, if you wanted to fake it, this is how you'd have to do it, is you would use a really, you'd use a 360 camera that bends all the footage. You see how it all bends, it all morphs around. It comes to the center, right? And this is exactly what that gentleman on the YouTube, on the YouThink was saying. It's a cyc. It comes to the center like he was showing with the trees. And you need to do this yourself. You just manipulate the footage and you can see what happens with it all. And at no point do they prove that the Earth is moving, so the vantage point of the sun is changing. They don't prove that. Here, everything's curving, right? And when you do things faster, you can see the poor quality of the integrity of the footage from using the 360 camera. Okay, so like I was saying, the cool thing about the 360 camera is you get to actually, so there's a viewer over here, and if you just put your mouse along the bar, you can kind of speed this whole thing up. Just try to keep it along the bar. And what's weird for me is the sun comes in from really high here, right? Watch the sun comes in. It comes in really high. It comes down towards the mountain range, sorry. And then it bounces. Oh, did it kind of stop right there? Seemed like it kind of stopped. Right? And then we're going to bring it along, and we're going to come, and it immediately bounces high on the horizon. It goes through some really weird distortion, allegedly clouds. You get some more artifacts. Maybe that thing is reflecting off what I thought of is that if you're in a studio and then there is an LED screen, that glass itself can reflect light, right, from the projection. So here it travels up, traveling up really high in the sky, traveling up really high in the sky, and completely, coming back down around and ultimately bouncing along that mountain range. But it stops. Look at that, it stopped. It's supposed to be the entire trip, but it's not the entire trip, is it? So here, okay, let's just go backwards from here. So the sun is here, which is at the end of that mountain range. And all right, coming all the way around. Sun is doing all kinds of weird things. They're, crappy artifacts and strange stuff. And there it is. And yeah, so they do show their 24-hour circuit there. Let's just increase the... Oh, again, let's just keep it down to 144. We can fool around here. Let's play this. Oh, this is just footage. I can't manipulate this. All right, let me see if I can get into one of the other ones that allow me to manipulate it. If they were claiming that that was also one of the other cameras, the 360 cameras, you'll notice that the other camera was still in view. This camera here, right? So we have this camera still there. So it's not one of the standard cameras. These are all the 360 cameras. So the 360 cameras, we can zoom in and out, and the footage is grainy as crap, and that's the baseline that they have for this footage. I'm going to bring this, well, let's just find the artifacts again, because the artifacts are in here. Right, look at this. So here's the artifact right here. There's a straight line going up into the sky, and then when you get to the ceiling, sometimes you can zoom in enough to see it. Again, I want you to do this. You're not going to maybe be able to see it on my camera because the camera is also resolving an LED screen here. But here you have stuff that comes this way and comes this way. It's a triangle here on the sky, here and here, because here's that artifact up from this side of this mountain here, right here. All right, so that's the mountain range. Let's see when the next artifact appears. Yeah, again, the light sources are weird, so you just do your own thing. Like, oh, can you prove that this is legit? So here's another seam right here in this footage. So there's a seaming right here. And again, comes down, goes out. If they were using a square ceiling, I don't know. I mean, This is going to make it really easy for them to make it look like they're in a square ceiling. We have converging lines here right at this point. This is the benefit to them of using the 360 camera is the whole thing is suspect. So you have this 360 footage. Again, the one gentleman from YouThink is like they used a psych, whatever a psych is for the terminology in the movie making trade. And this curves, right? So if they were using a standard camera, what I will do is let's see if, I see there'll be no footage on the 360, but you'll see how a standard camera captures a mountain range. It doesn't capture it as a hoop, right? It's a mountain range. So that would be a mountain range. It would have a straight line, but they're using the 360 camera and has a hoop. So right here is this other seam that comes along here because there is a break in whatever this object is here, and I'm looking at it at 2 minutes and 26 seconds. So this object hits that reflection, and it disappears below this line here. So there's an artifact here that's not below this line. So if this is on the ceiling, that's the ceiling video. This is the lower video. Here's the seam in the screen, and then you have these guys running around inside the studio. Who knows? Again, this is not about me definitively saying, "Oh, I know exactly what happened, bro. Trust me." I don't know what happened, bro. All I can tell you is this is the worst possible footage to use if you wanted to prove that you were on the up and up. Okay? Because here's this seam if they wanted to introduce or remove the sun at any point when it was going down to dusk. You never see dusk. That's what they claim at the 24-hour sun in the north, is the sun is low on the horizon, but it's like dusk. You never have dusk anywhere in their footage. So that's a problem. Let's just bring the quality back up again. Let's go to 26K or 21, whatever it is. I don't actually have that. And then, you attempt to zoom in, and there's just a limit to the zoom, right? Because the quality of the base footage is really poor. And then you're going to see, where here is their roadway. So here's a road, there's a seam. Here's a road that runs across that allegedly you're going to see vehicles enter on and off of here over this road, and then it squiggles along the mountain, and then they kind of disappear off here into the horizon. Okay? That's crazy. And that's why you would use this. Oh, there it is. Here it comes. So right here, something is entering the screen. Oh, I got it at a good time. I think we're going to get to see some vehicle come into the picture here. Maybe the snowmobile. But you should do this. Go out into this footage and see if you think this is legit. I see this whole horizon is really kind of crazy. Even in this is the highest resolution right here. Again, because this is a fisheye lens, you kind of see the curvature, right? Curving out from here, and then you have the sun as the light source over here, and us trying to make heads or tails of this to prove or disprove the footprints and all the other stuff, they may be just a red herring, because all they needed to prove is the sun is in the sky for 24 hours and use the best cameras possible with the least questionable video footage, right? I mean, that's what I would be looking for. Video capture with the least possibility of somebody going, "Come on, bro, you can't travel past this tripod because now you're into studio land," right? So anything like from them through here could be, when they blend in the studio, so they're in the studio with this fake snow, and then beyond it is the video capture of when somebody actually did go down to Antarctica and capture the sun along the horizon. There's no way for me to tell what time of day this is, what time, that we're claiming this is December through January. I can't tell anything about this from here. And here's where the sun comes into this really wacky area. Let me just speed it up for you a little bit. Again, but you do it. You go out here and you come through it and say, "Oh, this is definitive." they absolutely prove the sun is above the horizon. And what's funny about their footage, right? So we have the sun doing its thing against the lens. There's another guy who has allegedly a 24-hour capture of the sun, and it looks ridiculous. His looks like a picture of the sun. I'll show it to you. It's kind of funny. I'm going to pause my own capture here and just say again, you can learn more about what's going on in the camp if there was something you wanted to see, like right now at where I am along the scroll bar here, you have the truck in there, and then you can see at what point does the truck leave and enter. So the truck left, and it like disappears in my highest footage. Just in a little bit of a scroll, the truck disappears. So let me just go, truck's in the footage. And I just need to scroll back around to where the truck is, and here are the clowns are getting into the truck, and the truck disappears. Okay. Oh, whoa. Okay. So what I want you to do is go out to about 9:45. Maybe come out here and slow down the playback speed. You know. And so you slow down the playback speed, and then you come back around and when the truck is there, and you hit play. And then the Stooges get in the truck, and then the truck is going to leave, and then you see at what point is it just a blur, just an orange speck. You know, it happens so quick. It would be really hard for us to tell, you know, if and when they were splicing the truck in. Okay? And again, you do this. You don't need me to do this. You don't need me to prove anything for you, you know, because it's not my job. It's your job to try to prove if you think that these dudes are telling the truth, and what part of it is truth and what part of it is a combination of truth and fiction, because that's what every movie is, right? It's a combination of truth and fiction. And I think it was funny, some guy was commenting like, oh, you couldn't fake this. I'm like, dude, go watch King Kong and Godzilla duke it out in Tokyo. They fake everything with movie magic. It's just that 99 point whatever percentage of the population has really very limited experience with the technology that's used to fool them in movies. It's like how many people know the magician's trick of pulling a rabbit out of the hat. It's a very low number of people who actually get into the magic. So this is their magic. The Freemason expedition down to Antarctica, because they have to prove the 24-hour rotating sun. It's not our job. That's their belief system. It's not ours. To me, the proof that the Earth is not rotating is really easy because all movement carries inertial forces. And one of my favorite things, and I'll just take a little sidebar from debunking the Freemasons again, is what happens to you when you move along a rotating platform, which is what they claim the Earth is. The Earth is a rotating platform. It's corkscrewing through the universe. You know, I take the miles per hour and I adapt it down to feet per second. The rotation is about a quarter of a mile per second at the equator on down. Quarter of a mile per second. Okay, and then this is experienced by everybody. It's the orbit of the sun is 18.5 miles per second. So those two simultaneous motions, you would absolutely have to experience acceleration. Okay, no way around it. You would absolutely experience acceleration. It's too much change in your position in space. Okay, and then on top of that, they have the additional motions like the Earth traveling and orbiting the sun as the sun is orbiting the galaxy at 400,000 miles or 500,000 miles per hour. I use the number 400,000. That comes down to 111 miles per second. So you're changing in your gigantic rotating corkscrew. Even the first speed of just a quarter mile per second is ridiculous. But combining the speeds into your experience living on the peel of the giant space pair is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You absolutely have to experience. So I'm going to put on a video by a French couple. They're dancers. I'd have to call him a performance artist. And in this video, you'll see them dancing on a rotating platform. I don't know about copyrights and stuff. On the beginning of the video, I'll have to splice in that this is for entertainment and educational purposes. Disclaimer to hopefully be able to use these folks footage without any problem. I'm not going to use a lot of it. I'll just, sample a little bit of it, and you can go out and then maybe sample other of his work. It's not going to prove or disprove anything. It's just to show what the impact of motion is on humans when we're moving in a rotating fashion. Okay, so let's take a look at that real quick. Take a little sidebar, a little something else to enjoy. Johann et Marie Bourgeois. C'est que tombe. I don't know what that means because I don't speak French. But here is their dancing. They're starting off by walking on a rotating platform. Right? So they're constantly making subtle adjustments to their movement. And he's essentially moving straight. You see this lady in the background. He's maintaining his orientation as the platform is moving. But they're on a moving platform, so that platform is affecting their walking. Here, see now what happens? She stops, now he stops. And she has to lean towards the center, right? You see them leaning because they're adjusting to the force of the rotation. This would be going on for you everywhere, all the time, in every moment, in every change in altitude and position. You would be constantly adjusting to the Earth rotating if gravity was even operating in the way that they claim it is, holding us to the planet. Assuming everything they're saying is true, you're not having to make any adjustments at all. And they're making adjustments constantly, and they're not moving at 1/4 mile per second. That would be way too fast. You ever step out of a moving car and try to keep up? You certainly are just not able to do it. And this is something I like to use just because too many people have... I'm just going to pause it right here because I don't need to do too much of this. So what we have in life is, it's a confirmation bias, right? So if you're told that you live on the outside of a spinning spaceship, convertible spaceship space pair, I think it's funny. It's like we're on a convertible spaceship like Elon Musk showed us, sending up that convertible. As they claim you're living on the Earth on the outside of the peel of the giant space pair with no container for the atmosphere. And I had a conversation with some guy, and he was like, "Oh, but it's a gradient." I'm like, "Oh, how do you know?" Because you have to use a barometer, and a barometer is testing air pressure, and it itself is a container. So you can't even test air pressure without using a device that is a container in order for you to test that you don't live in a container, which is completely insane. Okay, so you can demolish the truth will always demolish lies because the lies are based on a fallacy. It's like, oh, the Earth is a ball, but everything we use to determine a level is like a liquid. Use a spirit level to help you determine level. And I had an argument with a guy about the theodolite having a drop to it and whatever. I'm like, yeah, how do you level the theodolite, genius, with a spirit level? Like, none of this gets through to them. Because if you just want to believe, you're going to cope and you're going to try to defend, right? It's hard to do. It's like me with my blue line that I captured in the sky, knowing that those artifacts also exist in the low resolution settings, but then it's very different to what I saw. And I can't remanufacture what I saw, and everything's the same. It's the same computer, I have it on the same settings, I'm doing the same exercise of zooming in and out, and I can't replicate what I found and recorded with my phone, sent to Vika, and then I put out the information on message boards, and within a couple hours, they had gone in using the smudge tool and to smudge that blue line out, and now we don't see it. So they altered the footage, and that's the beauty of the 360 camera, is you can alter everything that you see on the 360 camera, including turning it into a ball, right? And again, as somebody who's living on the motionless plane, if I was going to defend my position or to disprove somebody else's, I certainly wouldn't choose the most suspect medium to do that, which is a 360 camera. I wouldn't go to the edge of space. I'm going to jump off to, like that dude in the Red Bull high jump and use a fisheye lens. Why did you guys use a fisheye lens? Why? Because a fisheye lens does not provide an accurate depiction of what a mountain range looks like, or easily identifying vehicles coming on and off of the footage. You know, a standard camera, you'd still have pretty good zoom resolution. All the videos I take with this camera, when I zoom in, I still retain a tremendous amount of the quality of the image, which we don't when we look at theirs. The image quality drops dramatically. So I can't go out and say I know exactly when the truck was spliced in or not, or whether it was a real truck and it's just, you know, crappy video quality. So again, if something feels suspect, it probably is suspect. The character involved, he's got these guys under contract, so they're not really doing any kind of an independent experiment where you have the Globers doing their experiment and the Flat Earthers doing theirs. They're still in a controlled environment. They still have quiet hours, but we're allowed to set our cameras up, but we have to leave to go to sleep. You know, the whole thing seems so shady. But let's keep going.